Hey, you guys, welcome to another thrilling episode of Journeys with Jeff. First of all, I want to give a shout out to my buddy in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Russ Urquhart. You've been giving me a lot of wonderful feedback, and I want to thank you for all your help and your friendship. We have a great guest today. Fasten your seatbelts because this gentleman has a journey to share that is really going to be quite important for you to watch. Dan Blanchard is our guest. He is a teacher, special ed teacher in New Britain High School. He was his family lives in he and his family live in Mansfield, Connecticut, near Central. Near Yukon. He has 7 college degrees. He's published 5 books on teens and all their problems that come with education and growing up and adolescence. He currently writes columns for several local newspapers, the New Britain Herald, the Plainville Press, the Bristol Press, and a number of other local newspapers. So let's get started and welcome our guest, Dan Blanchard.
Hey Jeff, thank you for having me on the show today.
Good to have you too.
Excited to be here.
Tell us. Let's start from the beginning. Where were you born, Dan?
Wow, the end of 1969. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, our capital city, right down the road from Weaver High School.
So this is what, 69?
The very end of 69. I think it was November 30th, so I only had 1 month left in the 60s. And every now and then I joke with people that I'm a 60s baby.
Well, that was, but I remember because I was teaching in Hartford along those time about that time, and I remember a lot of the neighborhoods in Hartford were undergoing a lot of demographic change. Racial change and ethnic and different people moving in, people moving out.
Yeah, no doubt.
What was it like in your neighborhood?
Well, I don't remember the first few years.
Why not?
When I was just too young, but when I was probably about 4-ish, 5, 6, all through that, when I remember, I never saw anybody that looked like me. My family was the only white family that was living there in the north end of Hartford over by Weaver High School. So I remember, it was just me and my brother. We were the only 2 white guys or boys, that were in the neighborhood, and we got picked on a lot for being the 2 white boys of the neighborhood.
What did you? I'm sure at the time it was very uncomfortable, but as you grew older, did you learn anything about that experience, about what it's like to be the object of racism or prejudice or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I call it like a reverse racism, which seems kind of like odd to some people because like reverse racism, what the heck is that? Well, when you're the only white family in the neighborhood, and me and my brother were just little boys, and my father was off working during the day, and then when he wasn't working, he was in the bar, and my mom was trying to sleep during the day because she was working at night as a nurse. So me and my brother we were on our own a lot. We were like out in the neighborhood, and we were constantly in fistfights. I can remember I wasn't even in kindergarten yet, and I can remember I'd be down the corner. I'd never let, I was less than 5, Jeff. I'd never let my kid be less than 5 down the corner, but there I was, less than 5 down the corner. I remember fist fighting, and if I was winning, then it was against 2 or 3, and I always heard them saying, get the white boy, get the honky, all that stuff. So, me and my brother grew up hard, it was like we grew up with our fist on the street, with the whole reverse racism thing. And that's, those were the formative years of our life. And, we were like fighting for survival as just little boys.
Do you think that that experience, though, made you more sensitive, or you understand now that you've grown up and you've learned about what the black experience in this country,
yes.
the racism and the prejudice that they've experienced? Do you think that's made you more sensitive to?
I think so.
To what they've been through?
For the last 20 years, I've been an inner city school teacher, and I've been working, with special education students quite often with behavioral problems, which my brother growing up, he was a behavior problem. growing up. He was in the special ed schools for behavior problems because he was just emotionally and psychologically damaged from what he went through with always getting beat up in the neighborhood and getting beat up at home. And I was kind of in that same boat, but behind him. But over the years, like I've been an inner city school teacher, and many, many times I've been the only white guy in the class. So, I mean, like my heart just goes out to, like, let's say the underdog, whether it's color or whether it's, let's say, behavioral or, whatever it may be. My heart just goes out to the underdog, no doubt about it.
You mentioned about your brother and yourself, for that matter, not only the physical problems out in the street, but at home. What was going on at home, Dan?
Well, my father was an angry man. I mean, he was a Marine. He ran away from his father to join the Marines. So you can kind of guess like what his home was like with his stepfather. At 17 years old, I think his mother signed it away, and he basically took off from home, escaped from his father, and he went to the Marines. And and things weren't pleasant in the Marines. And when you're in the Marines, sometimes you drink. So when my dad got out of the Marines, he was like that angry, hard drinking, hard hitting Marine. And then, next thing you know is he finds a wife, gets married, has 7 kids, one right after another, after another, after another. And he just wasn't equipped, to handle that. He was overwhelmed, and, and he just drank even more and became even angrier and more violent. So, I mean, we were dealing with rough schools, rough neighborhoods, and then you come home and you're just a little boy. You come home where you're supposed to be safe, and we weren't, because we were getting beat up at home. Sometimes, we'd be in our bed sleeping, and you figure when you're in your bed, you're safe, right? And he'd come home from the bar late at night, whatever time it was, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever, and he'd yank us out of bed sometimes, so, and he'd beat us up because, one of us forgot to take out the garbage or something, something trivial. He found like a greasy spoon, in the drain. So he can pull us in the kitchen and empty out all the cabinets and put all the plates and everything comes into the sink and all over the floor and all this stuff. We'd be picking it up at midnight, washing every single dish in the house, and we had to go to school the next day. We were just little boys, and these are some of the mild stories. I won't get into the rough ones.
Oh my gosh! Now to compound this even more, when you were born, you were born with a disability, weren't you?
I was, Jeff. And
what was that all about?
it was crazy. I mean, my mother told me a long time ago that my father was like screaming at me because I wasn't listening to him. And my mother kept saying something's wrong with him, and my father, he just wasn't equipped to deal with that. And he kept saying, no, the boy's not listening, and he smacked my brother and me around, this and that. And it turned out we both had hearing problems. And mine was so bad. My brother's, I think, was easily fixed. But mine was so bad I needed an operation.
So you were deaf?
I was deaf. I couldn't hear.
And you couldn't hear and you couldn't speak?
And I couldn't speak because I couldn't hear. And my mother brought me to, the experts. I got the ear operation. And it was like, okay, the good news is your boy's going to hear again. So my mother was ecstatic because the bad news is it's too late from the talk. They're like, he'll never talk. He'll make these animal noises the rest of his life.
How old were you when you had the operation?
I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. I don't think I was in school yet, so maybe 3 or 4. But because I don't really remember much of it. But I do know they said that your boy would never speak. And my mom didn't give up hope, because that's what the experts told her. But my mom didn't give up hope, and somehow she found this little nun somewhere. And this little nun, she brought me down, I don't know if it was once a week or 5 times a week, but she brought me down there, Jeff, and she was giving me speech lessons. And I, she did a great job because obviously today I talk. Now, the funny thing is, all these years later, maybe I talk too much. What I'm saying? Sometimes my wife tells me I talk too much. But the other thing is, like, lots of times I talk with like a Boston accent. And everybody's like, where'd you get that? I'm like, I don't know, I never lived in Boston. So my friends, Jeff, they always joke. And they go, I don't know, Dan. I think that nun that taught you how to talk, she must have been an Italian from Boston.
Oh, wow.
Because I use my hands, I have a little Boston accent. I don't know where any of it came from, but who knows? Maybe it was an Italian nun from Boston that taught me how to talk.
So you're deaf, you can't talk. Your father is being very, the physical abuse is just unspeakable, beyond comprehension. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your mother. how was your relationship with your mom?
You know, I got to tell you, my mom was a saint. She was awake most of the hours during the day, taking care of 7 kids, getting us off to school, trying to get us off to sports or whatever we had to go to. So most of the day, I mean, I'd see her sleep a couple hours here, a couple hours there, and then at night she would go to work, and work all night, the graveyard shift. And sometimes, like, my father was offended by that, because my mother was like the breadwinner. So my father was offended by that. So he'd come home from the bar sometimes, and if he got home before she was leaving to go to work, sometimes he'd like hide her keys, or like, so she wouldn't be able to go to work. He'd do like little things to try to get her fired. Sometimes he'd like threaten her or like rough her up a little bit, not let her go to work. My mom so many times went to work, she was like almost spinning the wheels out of the driveway, crying, sometimes bruised a little bit, and she was going off to work all night. And it was just like she was made of iron or something, because what kind of person could put up with that? Day after day, year after year, but yet she did it, and she was always kind. Always.
But yet you felt her love. You did feel her love for you.
Yes.
Do you think that is as traumatic as the rest of your life was outside the home, in the home? Do you think that your mother's love was influential in your able to love?
I would definitely say my mother's love was a saving grace. She was a kind, gentle, extremely hard-working, just unselfish person. Everybody would always come before her, and we all knew, all 7 of us kids knew we were loved by her. So that was definitely a saving grace. And I would say there's so many parts of my mom that's still in me. I always try to help people. I'm kind, sometimes to a fault. I love easily. I can't let my kids go some days. I just hug them and squeeze them and don't want to let them go. So there's a lot of good parts of my mom that definitely rolled off on me and landed on me and stuck. So thank God that we had my mom. Sadly, she passed away too soon from a life that was just too hard.
Is your dad still alive?
Yes, he's still alive.
Where does he live?
He's over living in East Hartford.
I want to talk more about you and your dad later on. But I want to just keep the wheels going here. You were so the years went by, and you're going to school, and where'd you go to high school?
East Hartford High. I transferred out of Hartford, like 2nd grade or something like that in elementary school, and landed over in East Hartford at Hockenham. And I know me and my brother had gotten a lot of fights over there in the years. And then my mother put us in a Catholic school for the middle school over at St. Chris, and she was working extra hours, extra shifts to pay for that Catholic school because we didn't really have any money, but somehow my mother made it happen. I'm sure we got like a discounted rate or something like that. And then I landed at East Hartford High. Some of my friends went to East Catholic, but there was no way we could afford to go to East Catholic, so we went to East Hartford High. Yeah. And I got to tell you, Jeff, I had some great years over at East Hartford High. Some fond memories over there. Was
your father still living with you?
Yes, my mother never left my father. And I got to tell you, there was times, like my mother would come home from work, and we had a particularly rough night with my mother away at work, and my father being drunk in the home that night. And there were times like mother would come home from work, and we'd all have her piggy banks out on her bed, saying, "Can we leave?" And my mother would not leave. She said, "No, you don't run away from your problems. You stay and you fight for what you're supposed to fight for." And we were like, "Mom, he's never going to change." And he's and we're like, "Please, we want to go." And my mother would refuse to go. She stayed a wife and and a mother in that home, and my parents stayed married all the way through, and all of us grew up and all of us were out of the house. And she was a young 60 years old, and she passed away. As I said before, from a life that was just too hard.
Was there a point at some age where your father began to leave you alone? How old were you when the physical abuse stopped?
That was a rough night. It was Valentine's night. I was in 8th grade. My brother and me had been hitting the weights hard, trying to get as strong as we could to save the family. And my brother had been a wrestler at the high school now for 2 years. He was a sophomore wrestling on the varsity, and he was a heck of a street fighter. He get beat up a lot. You know what I'm saying? It toughens you up. And that night my dad popped him in the mouth, and my mom had always tried to push my brother to move, go, but that night my brother didn't go, and he stood his ground. My father popped him in the mouth again, and then it was over. The animal, my brother just came out, and my brother beat him up, and when he had him, and it pinned him to the ground, because he was also a wrestler. And then the cops came, and I remember my father looking up at me, and he was drunk, very drunk, and he said, "Danny, help me, get him off of me." And I said, "No, you deserve it. You deserve it." And the cops came, and he had to leave for one night. And so that's kind of how it was back then. And he was back the next day, and he tried a few more times, but then, but every time my brother threw him down, and basically my brother was the new enforcer, in the home. The beating stopped. There was no more beatings after that.
Did your brother become your father in a way by taking out his stuff on you too, or did he just act as a go-between between you and your father, and he didn't bother you?
He didn't. But during those years, brothers fight. Yeah, so we fought back and forth during those years. But the thing about my brother was he became very, very angry, extremely angry. He was damaged, from yay big. My mother says he was 3 months old, and he'd go over and touch the socket, and instead of my dad pulling him away, my dad would beat him for touching the socket at 3 months old. So he was damaged, but he never really took stuff out on me until later. He took stuff out on his teachers, or he took stuff out on the police. He was constantly being arrested. He was always fighting, and sometimes when the police came to break up a fight, he'd turn and fight the police. Well, that's all. He took stuff out on all those, but it wasn't. He didn't mess with me until later. The years later, he'd be drunk and he'd see me, and I don't know. He was kind of my protector in many ways. But at some point, when he was much older, and I was probably 18, 19, 20, and he was in his mid-20s, I don't know if he'd gotten jealous of me or what it was, but when he got drunk, sometimes he wanted to fight me. And I was like, whoa, what are you fighting me for? And he would just do dumb things, he would jump up on my car and start bending my antenna for my car. And I'd be like, get off my car, what are you doing? He was picking a fight. And I was a 2-time junior Olympian wrestler already. So what I was able to do, I was able to just wrestle him to the ground without hurting him. He was a hell of a street fighter, but I was a better wrestler.
Well, let's get into that. So let's say, okay, now you're in East Hartford. You're at East Hartford High, and one would think, given the experiences that led up to that point, that you would be a criminal, a troublemaker, a dropout, a horrible student, and all that stuff. But you didn't. You became an all-state wrestler and football player.
Yeah.
How did that happen? What happened in your life?
I look back, Jeff, and so easily I could have been in jail or dead. A lot of my friends were.
Why not? Why not, Dan? Why not?
I think sports saved me. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but I've been thinking about this a lot over the last decade or two. I really think sports saved me. I was lucky enough to get into football and saw a lot of success in football. And then when I was in football, and I was playing basketball and baseball, but when I was in football, one of the guys, one of my teammates' fathers, was a wrestling coach. And he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, what do you do in the winter?" And I'm like, "I play basketball." He's like, "Why don't you come down to a wrestling practice?" And I was like, I don't know. I like basketball. And he was like, "Listen," he goes, "next year you're going to be in high school and you're not going to grow tall." He goes, "So your success is going to be limited in basketball, so why don't you come try wrestling?" I said, "I'll try it." And I went there and I was a natural, Jeff. I remember I practiced a Tuesday night, he showed me one move. Thursday night, showed me a second move. Saturday morning, picked me up, brought me to a wrestling tournament, and I took first place. You know what I'm saying? So I was like a natural. So I think between the football and the sports and wrestling gave me a chance to fight. And I was fighting on the streets. You know what I'm saying? But wrestling was a way to take the fighting and, let's say, the anger off the streets and bring it into a wrestling mat and just brawl, just brutally brawl on the wrestling mat, and then not get arrested, but get pat on the back.
Yeah.
And get my hand raised and get trophies. And it was a beautiful thing. So I'd say sports saved me.
Well, Dan, you say that sports saved you, but there were people involved in that process. Was there a coach or coaches or a teacher or some other adult authority figure in your life who gave you the kind of guidance and nurturing that was lacking from your own family?
Well, I got to tell you, Jeff, a lot of people asked me, what kind of mentors I had, especially in my whole Granddaddy's Secrets book series about mentoring and all that. They're like, you got to tell us about your mentors. And I say, sadly, I really didn't have any mentors. I wasn't doing good in school. I was street fighting. I was getting into a little bit of trouble here and there, and I didn't have any mentors, and I wish I did, but I didn't. However, I know this is odd as it may seem, and I've said this before, is that sometimes, I would watch sports, and I'd see these people doing amazing things on TV, and I'd be like, well, if they can do amazing things, why can't I do amazing things? So as weird as it may seem, sort of like maybe sports figures on TV were sort of indirectly my mentors, was the people I wanted to be like. And then when I got older, and when I got in middle school, 8th grade, and I got in 9th grade, and stuff like that in high school, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, there was this one guy, Mr. Knapp. My friend John Knapp's father, me and John went to Junior Olympics together. Mr. Knapp sometimes would come looking for me. And he would say, come on, I'm taking you to a wrestling practice 100 miles away. You know what I'm saying? And I jump in the back of his car and he'd take me down to New York City. We go to a wrestling practice in New York City with really elite wrestlers. So Mr. Knapp's, I don't know if I call him a mentor, but he was definitely one of the guys that was looking out for me and making sure that I was spending more time on the wrestling mat and less time on the streets.
Well, it sounds like he was a positive influence in your life.
He definitely was.
And as we all know, we as a teacher, and I was a teacher.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty aware of that, how causes and conditions, we're very conditioned. I think your father, the experiences you had with the violence in the home, you were conditioned to act out and fight and be angry and violent. But now you've got another person in your life who was an influence to help you channel some of that energy, some of that anger in a more productive way, a more meaningful way, that you could create a life that, a better life for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I've been very fortunate over the years. I found a wonderful woman. I married a wonderful woman. I had Jennifer had 5 beautiful kids. I've got some friends that have stuck by me through the years, and they've all been wonderful, supports and encouragement. To go through that, all the stuff that I've dealt with over the years. My kids, just hugging my kids.
How many do you have?
I have 5 kids, and every single day, I hug my kids. And I can't say that I'm still without demons. We were talking earlier, and I said sometimes I miss the combat. I feel like I have to have it, and I miss it. I'm an older man now. Sometimes, but just hugging my kids, makes that demon go away for a few minutes, and gives me a sense of purpose and just relief, from it, and reminds me of all the good that I'm doing.
So you're aware, you're self-aware about your own self, and you also know that it applies to other people, and you say you've worked with special ed inner city kids, that to a certain extent, we all work to try to transcend our problems and to try to heal, but even you're saying even now, all these years later, there still are some scars there inside you. You feel that there are scars. It leaves scars, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and like I said, I've landed in special ed. I work with very, very difficult kids, very, very troubled kids, and I could totally see, what they're going through. I know what they're going through, because here I am, all these years later, I'm 2 or 3 times their age, and I'm still feeling like frustrations and anger and disappointments. I'm still feeling these things, and sometimes I just want to yell at the world that it ain't fair, So I can understand what these kids are going through. Maybe that's why I'm such a good teacher with them, and I understand like lots of what they're doing. And I was thinking, and you'd asked me a question back when we were talking back a while ago, Jeff, and I was thinking about it a lot over the last couple of weeks, and I wonder sometimes why, I know initially why. I felt like, me and my brother had to lift weights and learn to fight and all that stuff because we were in a situation that physically, and I get that, if we had physically had to fight. But what I didn't realize back then, what one of your questions led me to thinking about, was I was emotionally in a position, and I didn't know this, but I emotionally didn't feel safe. And to this very day, I'm 48 years old now, and I'm not a kid. And I've noticed that even today I don't emotionally feel safe. I still feel like I can't go to the gym and lift weights like I used to. I can't go wrestle like I used to. And I feel vulnerable because of that. And to me that doesn't seem normal, to feel vulnerable, because you can't bench press 300 pounds for reps and you can't hip toss a 300-pound man.
That's the tricky part,
Yeah.
It is, you can label it, you put labels on it, but given what you experience, given your life's trajectory and your experiences, feeling that way is extremely normal. It's very normal, given what you went through. And I remember it was, I was tearful. I remember you said how the only time that you really feel that you're safe and that you can be yourself is when you're with your kids.
Yeah.
And that's.
And I remember we had that conversation, and I've thought a lot about that since we talked.
Yeah. Well, Dan, okay, I want to just say to the audience there, this is just the first half hour of our show. We're gonna thank you. First of all, thank you for your for viewing, and we're going to see Dan again next time. We're going to pick up where we left off, and so tune in for the second part of the Dan Blanchard show, the Dan Blanchard journey, and find out what the rest of his experience was. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.